Hey gang, Ronin here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade. It is Saturday, and that means it is time for another Sports Saturday. If you've been enjoying the content on this channel, as always, best way to show is hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you are new, ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at @RetroCade. Help spread the word if you can. Hey, help us hit our goal of 100 subscribers as soon as possible. That way we can unlock YouTube's pesky customization algorithm. I can get that out in one word, I swear. Also, be sure to catch our Suckerpunch Sunday feature tomorrow, where we'll play a fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. And also check out our one-day features and WTF Wednesday, where we explore games that, in theory, were probably good ideas, and in a bygone time were probably very successful. But nowadays, leave you kind of scratching your head wondering what game developers and console makers were thinking. And if there's any game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Master System, Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, SNK Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a tweet and give me any game you guys want. Now, I have gone 11 episodes now, rolling into our 12th episode of Sports Saturday, and I am not ashamed to say I love boxing. Grew up on the sport, participated in the sport, never been in an actual fight myself, but it's something that I have loved since I was 4 or 5 years old, and I have yet to feature a boxing game on this feature. So what we're going to do is we're going to play EA Sports Fight Night Round 2 this Saturday, and we are going to do a one-off fight in an attempt to repeat one of the greatest fights in boxing history. That is the October 1st, 1975 classic third fight between the great Muhammad Ali and the equally great Smoking Joe Frazier, the Thrilla in Manila. Now, a couple of things about this game is Fight Night Round 2 came out in 2005. Obviously, this is the first sequel to the Fight Night franchise that started in 2003. This game came out on the GameCube, the PS2, and the Xbox, and it actually was received really, really well. It was a game that, for its time... Oops, I need to load my profile here while I'm thinking about it. Otherwise, it's going to make this pretty pointless. Load my profile here. But anyway, when it came out in 2005, it was really well received and really well rated. Metacritic score to this day still has it listed as 88 out of 100, and it made a lot of 10 bests or best games of the year lists in 2005. EA, as they were wont to do back 10-15 years ago, were still interested in making the best sports games and the best sports presentation games as possible. Now, in this game, you have a couple of options here for what sort of fights you want to be able to do. You can fight as... You have different weight classes. You have, obviously, heavyweight fighters. You have light heavyweight fighters, middleweight, welterweight, and featherweight. So you're going lightweight and featherweight. So you have, I believe, if I remember right, 6 weight divisions you can choose from. And then you have different fighters you can choose from each one. So from the heavyweight division, obviously, you can choose Muhammad Ali, Chris Bird, who was a heavyweight back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Smoking Joe Frazier is one of the all-time great heavyweights, Evander Holyfield, a great heavyweight who started out as a cruiserweight in the late 80s and became a heavyweight champion in the 90s, Roy Jones Jr., who is arguably one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in boxing history as well. He started out, if I remember right, as a welterweight or junior middleweight, and then worked all his way up to heavyweight before settling back down at light heavyweight. Sonny Liston, who was one of the great mid-60s heavyweight champions. He was the champion that Ali beat to win the title for the first time. And Rocky Marciano, who was among the great heavyweights of the 40s and 50s, retired with a perfect record of 49-0 for his career, was never beaten in the ring, and then unfortunately tragically died in a plane crash not long after his retirement. You also have Ken Norton, who was a devastating power puncher from the 70s, who actually, in his 3 fights with Ali, in their first fight together, he broke Ali's jaw. And James Toney started out as a middleweight, and is one of the great defensive fighters of all time. So, as I said, we're going to take Joe Frazier versus Muhammad Ali and see what we can do here to recreate the thrill in Manila. Now, if you are not familiar with the thrill in Manila, and you know anything about boxing or even MMA, one, what is wrong with you? And two, go watch it. It is one of the greatest, if not the arguably greatest fight in boxing history. Certainly one of the greatest fights in heavyweight boxing history. Again, it occurred October 1st, 1975 in Manila in the Philippines. It was fought at like 10 o'clock in the morning to accommodate U.S. Closed circuit TV. This was pre-cable, remember? So people actually had to go to venues like arenas and watch this fight if they lived in the U.S. And it is a brutal contest between two guys at what was the end of the primes of their career. You could argue that Frazier's career was pretty much done by that point, but he had enough left in him to go after Ali, and they were mortal enemies. There's a great documentary about the thrill in Manila. If you can find it, if you're interested, that HBO put out years ago to commemorate the anniversary of it. And it's told more from Frazier's perspective than Ali's, but it's a fascinating documentary. But if you are even remotely interested in the sport of boxing, watch that fight. And again, we're doing this because Cinco de Mayo is this weekend. And Cinco de Mayo is traditionally a huge boxing weekend. At least it's become one in the last 20 years. Now, I paused it for a minute because I want to explain a couple things to you. So in this game, how you want to be able to control your boxer is you move using the left stick as you would normally do with most modern games, but you have a couple of different options for what you can do with the rest of the buttons. I'm utilizing a USB Xbox controller, but since this is a PlayStation 2 game, I'll utilize the PlayStation iconography. So one of the innovative things about this game was that you could utilize the right stick to punch, and if you do like a straight up, that would be a jab, or it could be a cross. If you went for the side, it was a hook. You kind of went 45 degrees down and up, that was an uppercut. And then you also had a function that was called the haymaker, where you could throw a super huge punch. It would absorb most of your stamina, but if you could land it, you could do some serious hurt on your opponent. I don't really like playing that way. I like playing more with the traditional square, triangle, X, and circle buttons to decide my punches. So it allows you to throw a jab, a cross, a hook, and an uppercut, depending on which button you push. And then utilizing the right stick to block. And blocking in this game is pretty crucial because your opponents can tee off on you if you're not careful, and you can get knocked down pretty quickly. So we'll see what we can do here in round one. And if you are fighting a fighter like Joe Frazier, the one thing that you need to keep in mind of is his left hook. Joe Frazier's left hook was both horrifying and legendary. In fact, in their first fight together with Ali and Frazier in 1971, dubbed the fight of the century, and also considered one of the great fights in boxing history, at the end of the fight, Ali got knocked down for the only time in the three fights they had, and it was the only time that either fighter got knocked down in their trilogy from a hellacious left hook from Joe Frazier. There's a slow motion replay of it that is just amazing. And I should use this opportunity, if I can, to point out, if you are into boxing, I also have a boxing channel where I do more kind of what-if scenarios, and it's called Superfights. You can find it on YouTube, and the first fight we have up right now is Mike Tyson versus Sonny Liston. So we take different fighters from different eras and we pit them against each other using an independent system to go through each fight. We don't use a game like Fight Night to do it. And I have a lot of fun putting that together. So if you like boxing, I would say definitely check that one out. I'm going to have another one coming up here pretty soon. Those take a lot longer for me to make because they're a lot more labor intensive and I've got to do a lot more recording. So now the thing about Ali, and people to this day, when they know I'm into boxing, they will ask me, was Muhammad Ali as good as they say he was? And the answer is unequivocally, oh yeah. Muhammad Ali, for what he was able to do at his peak, was a true marvel of an athlete. Because you have to understand, in boxing, the bigger the guy, traditionally, the slower they move. And Joe Frazier's problem, while he hit like an absolute truck, he wasn't a fast guy. He was a scrappy, tough guy. You did not want to take Joe Frazier lightly. And to Ali's detriment, he did that for most of their time in the ring together.
Puts the hook in his face.
But Ali's thing was that he could move like a guy 40, 50 pounds lighter than him, like a middleweight or a welterweight, but still hit when he wanted to like a heavyweight.
Nice work by Ali.
And Ali wasn't a big knockout artist. In his 61 fights, if I remember right, he only had 37 knockouts, which is a considerable number. But his thing wasn't about just completely putting the lights out on you. It was more like death by 1,000 jabs. So we made it through the first round, and now we get to the point where we can start doing the corner work. And this is another aspect of this game that I liked, where for the first time you got to act as the corner man and help resuscitate your fighter. At the end of each round, which is a 3-minute round, both fighters get a minute to get themselves rehabilitated in the corner and get new information from their trainer. So what you do in this is that you utilize what's called an end spell. That's that big metal plate I was pushing over Ali's face. It's a cold piece of metal. You keep it in ice cold water. And what that does is it gets swelling taken down along your brow and along your face. It's never a foolproof thing, but it works enough that if your eyes start to swell, it can get that tissue to go back down and make it so you're able to function and be able to see better. I do apologize, by the way, for the state of the graphics around the fighters. I am utilizing PCSX2 is my emulator. But one of the issues that it has with this game is that while it can lock in and run at a decent speed, it does leave the background and the ring and some of the other stuff a lot more pixelated and fragmented. So, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. Ooh, I just got popped. Do not want to get hit by too many of those shots. Now, the other nice thing about being able to have the block function more accessible is that while you can block most punches just by going up or down, if you're lucky, you can parry the punch. And if you parry the punch like I just did there, it opens up a window by which you can hit your opponent back. Now, while I will tell you, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, in the left corner, that blue strip is my health bar, and the yellow strip is my stamina bar. Both can get taken out pretty quickly if I'm not careful. And the farther you go in a fight, and the more punishment you take and the more energy you expend, the smaller those gauges get. So you can inevitably burn out both your health and your stamina to the point where if you're not careful in the later rounds, ooh, that clock, huge haymaker. And that left hook from Frazier, you don't want to jerk with it. And I've almost got Frazier down here.
Ali believes in his power, but he's going to have to connect if he wants his opponent to feel it.
Oh, now I can put him down here, but now I've got to get him with the right combination of punches to put him down. So that's when you want to go downstairs, come back up. He's trying to block him. And down he goes.
Big hook puts him down.
So when you have a guy hurt like that, you just want to try and get him with whatever clean punches you can. But you don't want to just throw everything because your opponent is still capable of blocking, or they could come wrap you up and force the referee to break, and that automatically cancels that out. So I've already scored one knockdown here in the second round, and now I got to see if Frazier will get up. And he will, because it's Joe Frazier. And if you knock Frazier down, there's no way he's staying down.
4, 5, 6.
But now I've got the advantage on him.
Nice punch. He can make the jab to be a very effective weapon.
Except I stepped too far back.
Ali's tagged him with a hard hook up top.
But unlike the later Fight Night games, which I have and I have played and I did like,
this round is nearing its conclusion.
This one, the fluidity of the fighting and the mechanics just seemed to work better for me. In the later games, it got really frustrating because you were having to chase your opponents around the ring, and then you would try and land a punch, but the hit windows were so small, and your opponents always seemed to be able to block just about everything you threw. Now, bearing in mind, this game is also not like watching a Rocky movie, and I'm not saying that to condemn those movies with faint praise. I love the Rocky movies. I grew up with the Rocky movies.
Can you get the swelling down around his left eye?
But you have to be able to know and understand not just the game of boxing, but the science of it. And there is a science to it. It is colloquially called the sweet science of boxing by people who like to glamorize and romanticize it. But like most combat arts, and I do also consider boxing to be a martial art, it's just different than traditional Eastern martial arts like Kung Fu and Tai Chi and Taekwondo and Karate and styles like that. And again, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I've studied martial arts as long as I've studied boxing. I've studied Jeet Kune Do, I studied a little bit of Taekwondo, I studied a little bit of Thai kickboxing and Kung Fu. But the thing I ended up being best at, I found out as a kid, was more of just straight boxing.
He needs to watch out for that straight jab. That punch scores cleanly for Ali.
But you've got to be able to know how to move, how to set up, know how to utilize ranges. Because the thing about Ali is that Ali had really long arms. He had an 80-inch reach. Oh, and I got clocked with a massive uppercut. And that's the problem. If you let a guy like Frazier get too far into you, then he can just rear back and fire that left hook off and really, really put you in a world of hurt.
3 big punches for Ali. Frazier seems to have
but it's all about utilizing angles and moving and knowing how to keep your guy out of range.
Nice try with that punch, but
and along with being able to block, you can also utilize the L1 button and kind of lean out of the way. And you can slip and you can move. The problem with doing that is you also burn energy in the process of trying to slip out of the way. So you got to use it kind of sparingly. Oh, as I set right into that haymaker. That was not smart.
Frazier with a good feint that leads to a hard shot.
See, he caught me with 2 haymakers, and you can see he already took down my health bar by a lot.
Fires a big cross. He missed by Frazier.
Now, normally in a fight like this, I would be he caught me with another left hook. I would be trying to go down to the body more often. And that's actually when I would practice boxing in real life. I learned to utilize the value of going and hitting downstairs and going body punching. Because you can really, really take the starch out of a guy by landing punches along the ribs or things like that. You obviously can't go too low. Oh, good check hook I landed right there. I still can't get him dropped yet. I fired off the quick hook and down he goes. But Ali's thing was because he was so much taller than a guy like Frazier's that he could pepper him upstairs.
Frazier's not going to like this replay.
And not really hit him in the body much. But there's an adage in boxing that if you hit the body enough, the head will go down with it. Well, if you rattle the head enough, then everything's going to drop. But for being a game that's 15 years old, I still think the graphics hold up pretty well for being a PS2 game. Obviously, later games had sharper graphics, and when I was trying to figure out which game I wanted to play today, I even went back and played the old Knockout Kings games for the PS1, and those games have definitely not aged well. Not at all.
10 seconds left on the clock.
I just continue to pepper away and build up points. Now, When I say building up points is,
Go-round.
in a boxing match, fighters are judged by how they do in each round, and it's on what's called the 10-point must system. It means the 3 judges who score a fight, at the end of the round, once they determine who the winning fighter in the round is, they automatically give them 10 points. Whereas the losing fighter in a round will get usually 9 points. That way you can differentiate at the end of the fight, if it goes to a
Get the
scorecard,
swelling on that right
who
side.
wins.
Look at that eye.
I'm still getting clocked with
That was
left
some
hooks, and
nice
that
work out
eye
there.
is starting to swell up
Stick and move,
badly.
just
But
like in the gym.
if you score a
If you miss
knockdown in a
punches,
round,
don't be
that
throwing
helps
punch at a
you
time.
in terms of winning, because at that point, you will get 10 points for the knockdown, and the best your opponent can get if they're knocked down once is 8 points. If you knock them down twice, it's 7 points. And successfully, they keep taking a point off the fighter who gets knocked down for as many as they can in a fight. Now, granted, in most boxing jurisdictions, in sanctioning bodies, I should say, there is a 3 knockdown rule. So if you get knocked down 3 times in the same round, that's it. Fight's over. Nowadays, they waive that, and usually if a fighter gets knocked down and is
All right, here we
clearly
go
in a
with
bad
the
enough
fourth
state,
round.
the referee will
Frazier
just stop
might
it after
wanna
that.
Consider not getting up from the next knockdown.
And
He's
rightly so,
moving slowly
because
and
with
getting
what we know
punished for
about
each mistake he's
combat
made in the ring.
fight, with combat arts and the amount of damage
He's
guys
throwing
sustain
and
from
missing.
concussions, you know, for being as brutal a sport as it
Jab
is,
upstairs.
we don't want to see anybody get truly hurt. And
Powerful
I have
shots
seen
up
guys die in the
past his
ring,
defense.
not firsthand, but
If that hook lands, it could
the
score
most
some
memorable
points for Frazier.
fight I remember
There are
seeing that
definite
happen
signs
on
of
was
swelling
on
around
regular
his mouth.
regular
Not great
TV on a Saturday
execution with that
afternoon
hook.
when I
Ali misses with a
was
big hook.
5 or 6. There was a fighter from
A tiny cut is
Ohio
formed near his right
named
eye.
Ray Mancini. His nickname was Boom Boom. He
Ali's
wasn't a
tagged
heavyweight. He was a
squarely
small
in the
guy,
head
but he was a
with that
scrappy,
jab.
tough, Joe Frazier-like slugger fighter.
He really needs to do a
And he
better
fought a
job
guy
of
from South
protecting
Korea named
himself.
Doo-Koo Kim. And it was an outdoor fight in Las
Oh,
Vegas.
what a miss. Great move by
And
Frazier.
it went 14 rounds. And back then, if it was a title fight, which
There's
this
some
was,
swelling visible around his mouth.
the fights went 15 rounds. Now title fights only go 12. Most fights nowadays go about 10.
Frazier's hurt. He's holding on valiantly. But
But
more big punch
the
could
two
be the
guys,
end.
Kim and
He's gotta be
Mancini,
having a hard
pummeled
time
each
seeing
other
with his left eye
through the
so
whole
badly
fight. And at
swollen.
the end of the 13th round, or in the
Hard
middle of the
punch
13th
misses
round, I
for
should say,
Frazier.
Ray finally knocked Doo-Koo Kim down. And Kim never regained consciousness. He died, I want to say, 3 or 4 days later. And we got wrapped up, so I didn't get a chance to knock him down.
For Frazier. There's just a bit of swelling near his left
And
eye.
after, millions of people saw that fight for free on TV, and that really led to a lot of changes in the sport. That led to the changing from 15 to 12 rounds for title fights, and it also started moving boxing off of off of regular TV and onto pay and cable TV, and also that coincided with the rise of what was called pay-per-view.
We're seeing a lot of blood due to that perfectly placed punch from Ali. The crowd.
Now let's see if I can put him down here again. Oh, good hook.
crashes down
And
as
now
he gets
Frazier is
caught
cut
by
around his
Ali.
eye, and he's cut in the nose. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get up from this. I wouldn't be surprised if the ref stops it pretty soon.
Let's see that knockdown from another angle.
'Cause
Wow,
he's a
great
mess.
display by Ali.
Now, when you get a cut around your eye, it's never a good thing. I mean, getting cut anywhere on your face is never a good thing. But in boxing, when you get cut around the eye, that is really not good, because if it's over the eye, then blood will get into it and you can't see. If it's under it, then it's not quite so bad, but you can still,
2,
if it's along your cheek, you can get a lot worse.
5, 6, 7.
Time for a much
And one of the
needed
amazing
break.
things about a guy like
Ali
Joe Frazier
might
is
have
that
had his
Frazier,
best
for
round
most
of
of
the
his
night.
career, and he was a heavyweight champion, while Ali was exiled in the late 60s, early 70s for not going into the Vietnam War. But both the amazing and insane thing about Joe Frazier is that for the majority of his career, starting in like 1964, he suffered an injury to his left eye. where he could barely see out of it for the rest of his life. And Frazier unfortunately passed away in 2011, and of course Ali passed away in 2014. But for most of his career, Joe Frazier fought with sight in only his right eye. And he fought 41 rounds, I want to say. No, 44 rounds against Muhammad Ali, because they fought 3 times, 15 rounds each. The final fight went 14 rounds.
And it ain't helping our case with the judges.
Let's see how the fighters do here
And that
in
he
the
could
fifth
still
round.
beat Ali in their
Frazier
first fight
connects
against
with a
each
hook to the
other
head.
and be there right
His
to the
left
end
eye is
in their
almost
final
totally
fight against
closed
each
out
other,
there. It wouldn't surprise me if
while
some
only
real
being able to
damage
see out
has
of
been
one
done.
eye. Again, is both
Ali makes his
insane and
opponent look
amazing.
silly on that punch. That's what you
It goes to
have
show you
do
just
if
how
wanna
tough
win.
you have to be
throw punches in
to be
bunches.
good in a sport like boxing.
That was a
And as the old saying goes,
poorly executed
you can't play boxing.
Frazier's able to open
You
up
either
with
get in the
3
ring and you
hard
fight or
punches.
you don't. And as one of my favorite fighters of all time, the late great Marvin Hagler said when he got into the ring against Tommy Hearns, Tommy Hearns, if you've never watched that fight, if you've never watched the Marvin Hagler-Thomas Hearns fight, go look that up on YouTube, like right now. This video will still be up by the time you get back. Go watch that fight if you have any interest in boxing or combat sports at all. That is a great fight. But Tommy Hearns had a massive entourage of people that were in Vegas with him for that fight. And walking into the ring, as I put Frazier down again, Hagler looked at his guys and said he can't take those guys in the ring with him. When we get in there, just him and me. And they got it on, and it was a war. It was dubbed the war.
After that shot.
Now I'm curious as to whether or not he's going to get up. Because we are 5 rounds in now, and I've knocked him down, I think, 4 times. And in this game, the more you knock an opponent down, it will get harder and harder for them to get up. And I don't think he'll make it up at this point. Or he might. Nope, he's back up. Let's see if I can put him away here.
He gives him something to consider with that punch. Wow! Frazier's not looking so hot. For all you boxing fans that love knockouts, don't go anywhere, because we may see one shortly.
Caught with a cross. Oh, big uppercut, and he's down. That should do it. That should do it.
Ali hit him perfectly. Watch
Hit him with a
this
shot
action,
like that,
boom,
and
down he goes.
95% of the time they don't get up. But Joe's a different kind of beast. We'll see if he gets up. Kill! I always thought the knockdown graphics in this game were a little funny, just because they tended to fall like wet noodles. Can he get up? 8. Nope, that is it. I have knocked out Joe Frazier. So it doesn't go quite with the dramatics of the Thriller Manila, but Muhammad Ali gets the win decisively and finally knocks down and knocks out the great smoking Joe Frazier. Something they never actually were able to do in the ring in their 3 fights together. So to give you an idea, this is how the judges break down their scores at the end of a fight if it goes to a decision. So I was winning every round pretty comfortably, and I knocked him down in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, and that gave me a 10-8 advantage. And then because I knocked him down twice in the 5th, that gave me a 10-7 advantage. So I put him down 5 times, and I hit him with 389 of 532 punches. He only threw 326, hit me with 126. So that's the other thing I like about this game, is that it gives you a breakdown of how you're able to do from each statistical category. So you look at your jabs, you look at your power punches, crosses, hooks, uppercuts, things like that. How many times you hit a guy upstairs to the head, how many times you hit him downstairs to the body. But the haymaker one is the one that's usually the most telling, because, again, if you're using the punch control option that allows you to throw more haymakers, then you're going to utilize that. But as I don't, I worry more about being able to block conventionally and keep myself from getting hit. And I still got hit with 11 of them, which isn't much fun. But that, guys and gals, is Fight Night Round 2 from EA Sports for the PS2. If you've enjoyed that, and I hope you have, best way you can show that is to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. Remember, we have Suckerpunch Sunday coming up tomorrow, where we will play a fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. Also, catch our one-day features and WTF Wednesday coming up this week. Just to let you know, I do have my next playthrough just about ready to go. I've got a couple more elements I got to put together, but that should be getting started not this week, but the following week, so keep an eye out for that. I'm looking forward to getting that one up and rolling. Follow us on Twitter at Retrocade. Help us hit our goal of 100 subscribers as soon as possible. And if there's any game you'd like to see us feature from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation, leave it in the comments below. As always, my name is Ronin. Have a great rest of your Saturday, everybody. Be safe, be well, and I will talk to you again for Sucker Punch Sunday tomorrow. Bye.